in Washington, you are eyes and ears, absolutely. Some, politicians are back in DC. We see this big address to the nation from Joe Biden, really pleading with his own side and the Republicans to do something about gun laws. Now, big speeches are wonderful. They can be heartwarming, but they don't actually do anything. So what actually will happen in Congress?
Well, look, probably very little, which is just what happened after the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre, which was just as devastating and horrible as the Uvalde massacre. Some senators are actually meeting this evening in Washington to try to thrash out some sort of bipartisan deal between the two parties. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what the White House says, what the president says. It's all about Congress and specifically the Senate, where they need 60 votes to pass any change. And for 60 votes, they need 10 Republicans, 10 of the 50 Republicans to agree. And that's going to be very, very difficult because historically, Republicans don't support any changes to gun laws. And, the sorts of things that people are talking about here are extremely modest, extremely marginal changes. Just, the most basic background checks or lifting the age from 18 to 21 or banning certain classes of rifles. But look, frankly, I'd be surprised if anything except the most tokenistic outcome happens.
Yeah, I think you're right in all of that. Adam, coming from Australia and now living in DC, I cannot understand, and perhaps you can shed a bit more light on this, where Republicans can look at a tragedy like we've just seen in Uvalde or even Sandy Hook a decade ago and say the solution is more guns. I know this is a deep ingrained cultural phenomena, but is there any chance that some of these Republicans will at least look at better mental health checks or, also one of the more important ones is, I think, penalties for people who don't secure their guns?
Yeah, look, I think both of those things are probably on the cards, certainly more likely than lifting the age of purchase and things like that. But I must say, last week I was in Uvalde, actually, in Texas generally, interviewing people in the town and talking to them. And I was surprised that basically everyone I spoke to, I must have spoken to 10, 12 people, they still supported gun rights, even in the wake of that tragedy. Of course, they may have said, look, we don't need these weapons or the age should be higher, but there still is extraordinarily high support for the right to own a gun in this country, even after these shocking tragedies. And so that explains the politics of it, if you like. And look, I think it comes back to the starting point. I mean, in Australia, we started in 1996 with very few guns when the government bought them back. But here, there are 500 million guns, far more guns than people. So it's a very difficult problem.
Exactly, more guns than people. Exactly, I was just about to say that. Adam, as we head towards the midterms, in America, when you don't have compulsory voting, it's these culture issues or culture war issues even that do tend to get people out to vote. Given the state of the economy at the moment, rising inflation and interest rates, is that still going to be the case, or has the economy and the household budget, cost of living become more of a motivator?
Oh, look, there's no doubt at the moment it's the cost of living, it's inflation that is the number one issue in this country, certainly politically. The White House has been forced very reluctantly to talk more about it and to appear to be doing things. But the reality is that inflation here is 8.5%. It's much higher than Australia. And for the poorest people in this country, it makes life extremely difficult when there's inflation like that because the safety net is nothing like back home. So, yes, look, these issues in the background, guns and abortion, they are important and they will influence some voters. But certainly, overwhelmingly, it's inflation. And, it's unfortunate for the White House. It's, bad timing, bad luck, but they've inherited the consequences of all of this spending through the pandemic, both by the Trump administration and also the Biden administration. And there's very little they can do about it.
So the US is the canary in the coal mine on that inflation story. So we watch with interest what happens there. But what is your best prediction on where inflation is headed and interest rates?
Well, look, my best prediction is that inflation very slowly falls down, the rate of inflation, but very slowly. So in 12 months' time, it's still going to be 5-6%. which is, it's twice or triple the inflation target. So that means interest rates are going to go up to 3-4%. And that doesn't sound a lot, speaking historically, because of course they've been 12-15%. But now we have so much debt, so much household debt, and so much government debt that even at interest rates like that, it's an extraordinary strain on both households and government. It's going to be very interesting to see how both those sectors deal with those rates.
Yeah, and politically here, Adam, we see, both the opposition leader and the government in this recent election campaign say Australia is still a pretty great place to live. Look at what the rest of the world is doing. What is your view from Washington? Do you miss us?
Yeah, look, I miss it a bit. The thing I was thinking today is, how you have iron ore prices and coal prices, which are Australia's two biggest exports, so high, but the Australian dollar, which of course I pay attention to very closely, is still so weak. So I think that's a bit of a concern, at least to me, because, the dollar should be higher when you've got those commodity prices so high. But look, I think Jim Chalmers is doing the right thing, I think, politically in talking the economy down, because he's right. It is going to get worse, and I think it's best to lower expectations just in case something good happens. There's a positive surprise, but yeah, it's going to be difficult in Australia. You've got variable rate mortgages, your rates are going up. That's going to have an impact on house prices and confidence, and you've got recession fears here in the US. It's a 30% chance of a recession in the next 12 months. That's what most investors think. So, if there's a recession here, then Australia almost certainly be in recession too soon after.
Yeah, Adam, if not for anything else, a golden rule in politics, under promise, over deliver. We'll see where that heads and how that works.
Indeed.
For Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese, of course. Great to talk to you as always. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Laura.